I want to thank you all for deciding to spend some Memorial Day weekend paying some attention to the needs of the community and how we can be better informed and better activists. I'm going to, Mr. Royster, would you start us out with a little prayer?
Yes, sir. Father God, we thank you for our health and strength. Father God, we thank you for waking us up this morning in our right mind. Father God, we thank you for giving food to the people all over this land because it's a need for us. Father God, we thank you for trying to do social justice. And as we have been bad all over this land, Father God, bless us and bless this meeting. Bless those who are not here and bless those on our way and bless those for whatever reason are not able to hear. This is my prayer for Christ's sake. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Royster. The minutes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that the minutes be approved.
Dr. Yarborough has made the motion. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay, the motion has been made and properly seconded. Any corrections, deletions, additions to the minutes? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes, make some sign of the affirmative. All right, the motion is carried. The ayes have it. I'm sorry, are there any opposed? Okay, the motion is carried to approve the minutes. Madam Treasurer, you there?
Yes.
You want to give us the treasurer's report?
At the end of April, we had $26,501.83 in the bank.
All right. Chair will entertain a motion to approve to receive the treasurer's report as information.
Also move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions for Kathy? Any discussion about the treasurer's report? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the treasurer's report, make some sign of the affirmative.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those opposed have the same option. Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion to approve the treasurer's report, receive the treasurer's report as information is approved. Are there any correspondence, Dr. Yarborough?
The only correspondence we have is that we did get some notification that Kevin Miles has resigned from the national office. He's also the regional supervisor for the our regional supervisor at the NAACP. He said that he would announce in June his next step, but he's really effective Monday. So, and he will tell us in June what his plans are. So that's that's actually a biggie for us.
Yeah, that is something. Well, thank you. And could you remind me, well, I'd like to mention that the executive committee decided to have a Freedom Fund banquet, but can you remind me what the dates are?
We said in October, we said the third Saturday in October, our regular meeting Saturday.
Okay. It was October 15th. October 15th.
And we will start looking for a location because we wanted this one, hopefully, if the numbers don't continue to go up, to be in person.
Right.
But if
So,
we don't have
that
an extremely large crowd, that's fine.
and that committee was set at the meeting. If there's anybody at the general meeting who would like to serve on that committee to put this event together, please let me know. Send me an email or contact Dr. Yarbrough. But those are the dates. I also should mention that the State Executive Committee has set the dates for the state conference, which is also in October. I believe it is the 6th, 7th, and 8th, the 7th, 8th, and 9th. It's 3 days at the beginning of October. There'll be more information about it. It will be in Fayetteville, but they haven't narrowed down a location yet.
And Mr. President, we also got a thank you note or letter from Tatum White, the one who read her NAACP speech. So we did get a thank you. We sent her an honorarium, and we did get a thank you from her.
Okay, fantastic. She's a bright young lady with a bright future, I'm sure. So I think that's all the immediate business that we have. We're going to hear from our speaker. We usually have speaker meetings, and this week will be no different. After the speaker meeting, we'll do committee announcements if you have committee meetings. I want to also thank everybody who turned out to vote and to early vote. The primaries are over, and now we've got a general election. And typically, during the general election, the Political Action Committee has after the last day to register people to vote, we kind of disband, let folks go work with their candidates. But there may be some things, some projects, some information sessions that we can still do. So we'll hear from committees. And I apologize if I seem a little distracted. I'm working today. Dr. Yarbrough, would you introduce Angela Thompson, and we'll give her the floor to discuss the information that she has to present to us to make us better activists.
Absolutely. I didn't know I was going to have this pleasure. I will be glad to introduce Angela. Angela Thompson is a very active young lady in the community. Angela is the executive director of one of the most active programs and resource programs for the elderly in Alamance County. She is actually the go-to person when you are trying to find information that benefits the elderly. So she is the executive director of Eldercare, but we go to her for housing, for the rights for elderly, for all of that that kind of information. And she is a regular member attending the Alamance County Planning Board for the aging. So it does give me pleasure to introduce our speaker, the executive director of Alamance Eldercare, Angela Thompson.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Yarbrough. And thank you, Barrett. Thank you all for having me. So Barrett, is it okay if I share my screen? I don't know if he's.
Yeah, that's fine. So,
Okay. I'm going to attempt to start a slideshow, y'all. Can't say this always worked exactly like I intended. So like Dr. Yarbrough said, I am the executive director for Alamance Eldercare. And so Alamance Eldercare, we are a nonprofit. We have right now, we have 5 people on staff, but I did not list the 5th person because we created her position. She's a marketing specialist, but 3 weeks after I created her position, she turned in her resignations because she's going back to school. So Tammy McKee is our care manager. She's over our family caregiver support program. I'll tell you a little bit about that. We have Tracy McKinney. She's over the CAT DA program, and that's a Medicaid program. Myself and Maria Lyons, who is my program director, a program manager. So our mission and our vision to maximize the health, well-being, and independence of older adults, and to provide leadership with the older services in the community. Our vision is we envision a community in which it's in the way. All older adults and their caregivers have access to the resources and support needed to live full and independent lives. So Alamance Eldercare is a nonprofit 501c. It's governed by a board of directors. We were founded in 1994, was out of a collaborative with, at the time, Alamance County Hospital, if you all remember, and the old Memorial Hospital. We are a self-supporting affiliate of Alamance Regional Medical Center and Cone Health. So just to give you a snapshot of what aging looks like in Alamance County. In 2010, 20% of the population was age 60 and over. 2011, 24%. And by 2030, 26% of the population of Alamance County will be 60 and over. Interestingly enough, you all may want to look at the community assessment coming out this year. I know Bob is familiar with that. And you'll get to see some of the trends in aging, where the aging populations are within the zip codes, within the county. That's a really good indicator of where people are aging, what their needs are, and where the most frail or indigent individuals are within the county. And it's called a community assessment. So how do we get our funding? Well, federally, our money comes from the Administration on Aging. We get money from Cone Health, and they in-kind us our office space. They in-kind us computers, they in-kind us telephones. And what that means is they basically give it for free. And we use that to match our grants. We get about 80 grand from Alamance County. We have applied for some grants through United Way. They have focused more on children in the last couple of years, so we haven't gotten much from them. We have investments with Alamance Community Foundation, so we apply for grants from them occasionally. We have grants through the North Carolina Family Caregiver Support Program. I'll tell you a little bit about that later. We have the CAT DA program from the Medicaid program I mentioned, and then we fundraise and individual and corporate donors such as Glen Raven. And gosh, I'm drawing a blank. I'll tell you the other one in a minute. So if you're familiar with the Older Americans Act, in 1965, it was established under the Administration on Aging, and it provided grants for planning and services and research in the aging population. So the reason why I put this in here is because I want you to understand that when how our money trickles down, right? So we are under, at the top, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is the federal program. So that's the middle hub, right? The money trickles into North Carolina through the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, the Division on Aging. And regionally, it then goes into Kernersville. That's the Piedmont Triad Regional Council on Aging. That money comes into Alamance County, and it comes in the Alamance County Planning Committee for Services for the Elderly. And that's where Dr. Yarborough serves. That's how I know her so well, is because I meet with her monthly in these meetings. In those meetings, you have all the nonprofit service providers that apply for this money that trickles down from the federal government. And if you all are interested, I'd be willing to send you all this slide so you'll know That is where we go to ask for fundings, whether we're Meals on Wheels, whether we're transportation, congregate services, anybody that's going to ask for aging funding in the form of a grant is going to go to the Alamance County Planning Committee for Services for the Elderly. So let's talk specifically about Alamance Eldercare. What do we do? If you come to us, you're going to come for one of these services: information, referral, case assistance. So that's just typically somebody calling in. And let's take the case of a child coming in and, they haven't seen mom in 3 months. They come in for a holiday and they come home, they see that mom is not eating, or mama's house is not being kept up like mom normally keeps the house up. They'll call us and they'll say, well, mom may need a little more help. I don't live in town. So what kind of services can you help me provide for mom, right? That would be information referral. Sometimes that may go into 2 to 3 months, because if that child lives out of town and they are not able to immediately fix things, which is most often the case, they may call us and help, and we may act as a liaison between that child and that parent, going out there, just kind of talking to that parent in town, helping that child understand how to link services to that parent. So that's where case assistant comes in. It's a little longer than a phone call, which is information and referral. The care management piece, that is a grant, part of that Alamance Planning Committee that I mentioned, the federal grant money, and we have to apply for that grant money every year. We maintain about 9 slots for care management. Those are not income dependent slots. So that means that, unlike the Medicaid program, they can make any amount of money. The caveat to that is we have a wait list that is usually 2 to 3 years long. The community alternative program, the third one down, that is a Medicaid program. So for anyone, if you know anything about Medicaid, you know that you have to be indigent. Right now, the Medicaid limit is right at $11.50 a month. So if you make anything over $11.50 a month, you would not qualify for the community alternative program for disabled adults. The other program that we offer is options counseling. Options counseling is much like case assistance, but it's goal oriented. So a person may come in, they may decide, okay, well, I don't want to stay in my home anymore. I'd like to move into senior housing. Can you help me do that? So they may set a goal of, I'd like to move in by 6 months. One of our case managers would help them transition, wrap everything up in their home, financial, whatever they wanted to transfer to get to transition their lives into some kind of structured living. We offer wellness education in the form of fall prevention, chronic disease, and healthy living. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. We also have a partnership with the Durham Diaper Bank, and one of our care managers goes each month to pick up supplies that is predetermined. Most people already have told us how much they need each month, and we pretty much keep them at about 30 diapers or pull-ups and 30 underpads and then some wipes each month. So we'll go and pick up that amount per client each month. I think last check, we gave out 1,500 diapers, underpads, and wipes last month. So I'm gonna go a little bit deeper into each program, but not much that it won't be over. I don't want to overwhelm you guys. But so information and referral to resources for older adults and caregivers by phone, by email, appointment, and website. If they need extra help, we will provide assistance and advocacy in obtaining those resources. So like I said, that can be a phone call. Most often it is. It can be an email, and then it will normally result into that person, that family caregiver, or even a friend or someone in the community coming in to get information to help that elderly person who is normally 60 or older. This is our website, alamanceeldercare.com. So we have a family caregiver resource guide. If you go to this website, which all of this is on our website, on our on our main website, Alamance Eldercare. If you click on the alamanceeldercare.com resource guide, you'll see the family caregiver community resources. This is geared towards helping caregivers find what they need when they are trying to care for mother, aunt, uncle, friend, whomever they're trying to care for. They click on it, there's a list of resources, and they can click on the link and it'll take them directly to that other partner agency's website. The other program I was telling you guys about, and I can't see the top of my screen, I don't know why, is the care management program, which I mentioned we have 9 slots. So care management is a wraparound program. So when we take that person in, we take them off the wait list. We will identify their needs. We will develop a plan to meet the needs of that client and that family. We put a plan in place for those needs. We communicate with the client in the home by phone every month and review their needs every 90 days to make sure their plan is working. So it looks like this. We pull a name off the wait list. That person may be on that wait list for 2 to 3 years. We then will meet with them and their family and we will say, okay, what do you need help with? They say, I need help with bathing, dressing. There's not a lot of money there. So usually it's, I need a bath 3 times a week. So we usually provide them 9 to 12 hours a week because this is a grant. So there's very limited amount of money. Then we will contract with an agency. That agency will go in 3 times a week for those 3 hours, help that person get a bath, probably fix them a light meal, and then just keep that service going as long as our needs assessment says that that person is still in need of the assistance, or the help. So if they ever get to the point where they no longer need help with bathing, dressing, or light meal prep, then they would transition off the program. So the CAP Choice program, I talked about, that's a Medicaid waiver service for those who qualify. And the thing about CAP Choice, CAP DA, CAP Choice, they have to be nursing home level of care. That means they would normally have been placed in a nursing home, so they have certain qualifiers. The CAP Choice program, it provides case management, personal care, home accessibility and adaptation, meal preparation and delivery, personal emergency response, medical equipment and supplies, community transitions, training, education, consultation, assistive technology. That's a lot, right? Well, the way they provide that is, let's say a person qualifies for CAP DA. They are going to be placed on a statewide wait list. So typically a person will go in the hospital, right? And the care managers will notice that the person is having trouble bathing, dressing, walking, toileting. And they will say, okay, you have to go to a facility for 20 days, the Medicare days. When they get to the facility, after their Medicare days are gone, the facility is going to decide, okay, you got to go to another payer source. Normally that's Medicaid, because most of us can't pay a facility $6,000 a month. That facility is then going to say, okay, well, what are your plans? And most people want to go home, right? So they're going to call the state and then put that person on the community alternative program wait list to get them back into the community. At that point, they're going to be assessed by the state to see if they qualify. And there's indicators. They have to have a safety plan. So this person is nursing home level of care. They have to have certain supports in place to say that if they come home, that they can remain at home and meet certain safe guidelines per the state. They have to meet the income guidelines. So it means they have to go over to the Department of Social Services, put in the Medicaid application, and they have to be indigent per the Medicaid guidelines, right? They give them an extensive budget. This budget is probably about $3,000 a month. And that translates into all of these services that are listed here. Most of our CAP people get about, I would say on average, 25 to 35 hours a week in in-home care. That is a lot. Because most people, like I told you on the care management program, we can only afford to give them 9 to 12 hours. CAP budgets are extensive. And the reason being is because it's more cost advantageous for the state to keep that person in the community, paying $3,000 a month, $4,000 a month, rather than a nursing home, which is probably upwards of $7,000 a month now. So this is a really good program. I'll try to go a little faster. The last thing we do is we provide this may not be my last slide. I think the diaper program is. We provide options counseling. And remember, I talked about this is when a person comes in and they may set a goal. This is not a reimbursable program. This is a service we provide to the community. Typically, this person is very independent. They already have something in mind. Like I had a lady come in. She was one of my options counseling people. She wanted to sell her land and her home to move into, she wanted to move into the city. So she and I set a plan for how she could do that in 6 months. That's the kind of person that comes in for options counseling. Let's see if I can get my slide to move slide. And we offer wellness classes. We teach these in the community, and normally we will go to a structured place like Burlington Homes, for instance, the Willows, and we will teach a matter of balance, powerful tools for caregivers, or chronic disease, usually taught to a group of people, and we have to have a minimum number of people for all of these groups. The Family Caregiver Program, it's another grant-funded program, limited amount of respite, medical equipment and supplies, caregiver information, and you may have seen some of the advertisements for the caregiver educational series we provide. A lot of dementia-related information out there. We provide most of these educational programs in partnership with Canoga Senior Center. We provided most of them virtually over the last 2 years. And we have an annual resource fair. And we normally do that at St. Mark's Church. Some of you may have come to that before. The diaper bank, as I mentioned, we provide free of charge incontinence supplies to anybody that is a resident of Alamance County. The only thing you have to do is call in. They tell us what they need, diapers, pull-ups, pads, inserts. They qualify for one time a month. We usually give them about 30. And it may not sound like a lot, but for somebody who is trying to have a strict budget, that helps them. So we, like I said, we're upward of 1,500 supplies a month we're giving out. And we fill our cars up every month to go to Durham and pick these up. So it's free to the community. So I'm at the end of my presentation. Does anybody have any questions? It's a lot of information, and I certainly can go back to any slide and review anything that you guys wanted to know more about.
Hello, this is Anthony Pierce, Political Action Chair for the branch. I have a question.
Sure.
So first off, excellent presentation. One of the things that I see, and even personally, is having resources to have conversations with families while they're trying to make decisions such as what are the options. Does your organization, do they do that to help families? Because sometimes families are on different waves of the spectrum. Some say no, she doesn't need it, and others say yes, she's probably needed it a long time ago. So does your organization have any support services that can help families kind of talk through these options for their loved ones?
Yes, absolutely. We often have family meetings, and usually the starting point for that is, usually somebody's in trouble. And most of the time, families don't even know that they need a family meeting. They don't even know that a conversation about moms not processing the way she used to process. Mom's money is missing. Mom's not eating. Mom's not taking medications. They don't even know that that should trigger a family meeting. They think that one person should go over and talk to mom. They don't usually think about a team approach, but we always say to them, everybody has a gift, right? Somebody may be the financial person. Somebody may be the person that goes over to clean up the house. Somebody may be the shopping person. I'm not the hands-on person with the personal needs, but I can do the oversight of the finances and the shopping and all that. So my sisters, they like to do the transportation for my dad. Everybody has a gift. So a lot of times, to answer your question, the first thing I say to families is, who's your team? Because you need a team. You can't, one person cannot care for your aging parent or your aging family member. It will consume you and you will forget to care for yourself. So yes, we do that often. We have family meetings. We see that people are like deer in headlights when it comes to knowing what to ask or knowing where to start. So please call us. Any one of our care managers will talk to you. We'll set up a meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment if I could. This is
Sure.
Bob Bird.
Hey, Bob.
I've served, good job, Angela. I've served on Angela's board for probably decades. And when I worked at the hospital, I used to get calls in my office pretty frequently. You know, for some reason, people out in the community think that I know everything about how to connect older adults to services. And they would call me with these issues. And I said, all you need to know is this one telephone number to Alamance Eldercare. Call them because we all know that we have a very complex system of health and social services in this community, in any community. And it's really hard to navigate, but it's Alamance Eldercare who will help you or your loved one to navigate that complex system and to get the services that you need or that your loved one needs, and you as a caregiver might need in order to maximize the independence of older adults.
I think Kathy has a question.
Yes, thank you. You said you need more than one person in a family to help provide for your loved one, but what if you are the only child and there's no one else to help? What do you do in a situation like that?
So I would suggest calling into our family caregiver program, because that our support group, there are multitudes of only children in there and they bond together. So they call each other with, okay, I'm having a bad day, or okay, this is not working for me. And they find that they can find just a support system there.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah, and even the Alzheimer's Association, they have a family caregiver support group. Twin Lakes has one. You'll find that if you make it known that you're isolated, there's so many other people who are only children that are doing the same thing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So any other questions?
I'll make a
Hi,
Wilson.
Angela.
Hey, yeah. Sorry.
I heard.
This is
Oh,
Omega.
hi, it's Mary. Whoop.
I'm
Hi,
hearing
Mary
feedback.
Louise, and
Mary Louise, I think, was talking.
okay, sorry. Thank you, Angela, for all you do. And I just have a quick question. I didn't hear this. Maybe you said it, but do you accept donations, and what would be the cap of your donations, and what can Alamance County do for you?
Good question. Yes, we accept donations, and you can send in your donation. We have a website. You can go to our website. There is a donation button. And what you all can do for us, we are now reaching out into the community. We're setting up at all of the Juneteenth celebrations. We are setting up at different locations. Ebenezer, we're there today. We were at several locations like educational, CSL Plasma. We've been in the community. And if you see us, come up and say hi. Come up and get some of our information. Come up and talk to us, because it's like we're trying to get visible again. Come and do a tour. Come and talk and see our office, and just talk to our staff and just find out what we're doing over there. I mean, Bob, you're on our board. What do you have? Bob, you have any other suggestions of what they can do for us?
Well, I did hear Mary Louise ask if there was a limit on donations. I don't think so.
No, there's not a limit, no. And so we have people that, like I said, don't qualify for CAP. And those people are the most vulnerable. They're like those people that can't qualify for anything indigent, and then they're waiting for services. So we use our client assistant fund to help those people that are in the middle, I guess you could say.
Angela, I don't think you said that Alamance Eldercare, other than what we get paid from the government programs or through grants, we're not charging individual clients
no.
for our services. It's
No.
free to clients and,
Right.
and to caregivers. I mean, all this information is free.
Yeah,
And
we're free.
assistance in making those connections to area providers and resources.
Did I answer your question? I think it was
Now you
Mary.
have a question from Omega
Yes,
Wilson.
you did. And yes, you did. And Bob, that clarified my point. Thank you so much.
Okay,
And
thanks a lot. The question I had is relative to people who served in the military, who are at that age level. How are you intersecting your services with VA, where they work together, or when one starts and one stops off?
We do mostly we refer to the veterans services. And the reason being is because that's a complicated system. And when we start providing services, that being a federal program, we have to be very careful that we don't duplicate services. So we often tell people, go to Veteran Affairs first, go to Veteran Services first. And then if a lot of people, by the time they go through and they haven't had enough time, feet on the ground, boots on the ground, then they can come back to us and they can qualify for respite, care management, any of our services. Because, you know, if you've gone to Veteran Services, you know that the number of time you served actual combat is what qualifies you for now in home aid services, aids and attendance, or anything like that, right? So like let's say your dad needed services, he needed an aide, someone to come out to help him with bathing, dressing, your mom needed it, and your dad was in the service. It's gonna depend upon how long his feet were actually on the ground in combat. But you have to disqualify for those services before you can qualify for any of our services, because that's just the way these grant programs work. I'm sad to say. So when people come in, we have to refer them out to Veteran Services first, and then they have to get a denial, and then they come back to us for care management, family caregiver. And that's how we work that.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions? So I hope I didn't take up too much time. But thank you all for having me.
Thank you, Angela. And no, you did not take up too much time. That was perfect. It was a splendid presentation, lots of information. And, you know, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So we're glad that you were able to give us information that we can spread in our separate spheres of influence to educate people and to make sure that people receive the services they need with dignity.
You're welcome.
So thank you. I wanted to, yes, Dr. Yarbrough, applause. I also wanted to, before we do the announcements, I wanted to talk about, we have Captain Tony Velez, with the Graham Police Department on. And recently, there's been a lot of activity in the advocacy community concerning the Graham Police Department. Officer Strader's hiring has come up a lot. There have been protests down at the city, at the town hall in Graham. There's been a lot of activity on social media about incidents at the Pines and the safety of folks in Graham. And one of the things that I believe is that I want to say right up front, I believe in direct action. I believe in protesting and marching and vigils and sit-ins. I believe that those are tools. But I believe those are tools that you use when folks stop talking to you. And that if we're gonna progress as a community, that we're gonna have to, and neighbors, that we're gonna have to have conversations with each other and try to make sure that we're on a path that is mutually beneficial and that we keep communications open. So I reached out to Chief Cole and to kind of talk about the incidents. And I said, it would be a good idea, I think, if someone from the Graham Police Department came and talked to the NAACP about what community policing looks like in Graham, what the future of it is, maybe answer some questions, as many as they can, about the incidences, and so we can have a dialogue. He can kind of talk about what's going on in criminal justice in Graham, and answer some questions in the spirit of having a discussion and a civil discussion about what some of the concerns are. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Captain Tony Velez. He's a commander in Support Services Division in Graham.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. Sorry I was a little late and I got the link late, but yes, Chief Cole reached out to me earlier in the week and advised me that there was going to be a meeting and that there were some questions about a lot of things here going on here in Graham, and I just wanted to be available to assist any with clarifying any confusion that there was. I know Mr. Brown just spoke about several issues that he's noticed, and I'm just, without knowing how the flow of this meeting is going, I didn't know if y'all want me to speak on those matters or you want me to open it up to any questions from this panel.
Well, I'd like you to speak on those matters, and then there may be some follow-up questions.
Okay. All right. Well, currently, as far as community policing in Graham, we received a grant from the U.S. Department of Justice in October of 2021 that we applied for and the city approved to hire 6 police officers with a community-oriented policing focus. We are still trying to fill those positions. It's a process and get everybody trained. But the goal of that is to bridge that gap, is to have officers who are able to focus more without the increasing call volume interfering with a more focused approach to bridging the gap in communication with our community on actually solving specific problems. And that is one of our limitations and one of the challenges we've been facing. As I've spoken about at several other town hall style meetings, that we at the Graham Police Department realized back in 2019, 2020, although we thought we were doing a fine job, we were not, with advising our community of what was going on. It became readily apparent to us that our community was not quite aware of what we were doing. So we're trying to do better about that now. And another issue is that sometimes I think people forget about what's going on in a municipal environment, especially that's the county seat. So so sometimes our officers have a lot going on and they're not able to focus on certain issues as much as we would like. So that's what the sole purpose or the overall broad purpose of our community-oriented policing team is going to be, is to able to focus on specific community issues and communicate with members of the community who are experiencing these issues and work together to solve specific problems, while the rest of the agency can continue on with the broad purposes of criminal justice and law enforcement in the city. And that's just the broad purpose of our COP team. As far as the recent demonstration involving Officer Strader, we have spoken about that in the past. But and like I said, Officer Strader, we hired him from Greensboro Police Department. We are aware that that some people have a point of contention when it comes to why he was hired. And as we've explained in the past, he had to, he overwhelmingly exceeded our standards required for our hiring. And when you're hiring a police officer, it's not only when we do a background investigation, they have to fill out applications and lots of paperwork to come work with us. And not only do we do an extensive background check on them, and then we have to forward that for permission almost. So the way that process works is they apply, we look into it. There's multiple facets of a background check that we are involved in. And then that entire packet is forwarded to the North Carolina Criminal Justice Education and Training and Standards Commission for their approval to certify the officer to be able to work as a police officer in the state. And unfortunately, due to personnel laws, we're not always able to speak in detail on a lot of the things that have occurred, especially when things that have occurred in another agency. That's something we, and that they're involved in, and we can't speak about in detail, but we have tried to express to our community that public safety is our primary concern. And of course, we understand how that optic is surrounding Officer Strader, but we wanted everybody to understand that application process is extensive. And we would not have hired an officer that was not qualified to hold the position. And the state would not have certified him if he was not qualified to hold that position. I know, and then another big point of focus, I know we've been, it's been all over the news, is the Pines apartment complex and the particular incident involving Officer Strader. To help clarify that particular situation is, just a brief rundown, and of course, anyone can answer, ask any questions they like. But the day of that incident, there were officers that were on the patrol ship that day.
Hello? I'm on the conference call. You never see me on the phone. I don't know. Go ahead.
There we go. There were a couple of officers, none of them were Strader, that were at the Pine Departments attempting to check some warrants in the area. As far as I know, that's the patrol division. They were clearing from that area, excuse me, and leaving when they noticed the gentleman that didn't have his seatbelt on. One of the officers pulled him over. They were attempting to handle that traffic stop with him, and they were approached by residents and visitors of the Pines Apartments and surrounded the traffic stop. The supervisor on scene just directed them to stay back. They wanted to record the traffic stop. Of course, that is not an issue. The officers were also wearing body-worn cameras and recording the incident, so we were not concerned with that. It was only until they started to encroach upon the personal space of the officer attempted to conduct the investigation and then interfere with the traffic stop that we had to intervene. And then when that situation escalated, additional officers responded to the area to assist, and that is when the multiple arrests occurred and uses of force occurred. And that is how Officer Strader ended up at the scene. He was one of the backup officers that was requested when the situation got out of control. And that was and that's a brief rundown of what happened in that situation. And I have told the media that, and several people who have called the police department to speak about that particular situation. And that is what occurred, is that there was a traffic stop going on that was unrelated to the Pines. And of course, we learned after the fact that that gentleman that pulled into the apartment complex that was involved in the traffic stop was actually there to visit some subjects that he knew there, but he was, that was unbeknownst to us before the traffic stop occurred. And that gentleman, once the scene was able to be calmed down and those arrests were made, then he was able to conclude his traffic stop and going about his way. But that entire situation escalated when subjects at the complex, interfered with the traffic stop was unrelated to the apartment complex. And so that is what I've been explaining to multiple people with questions about that particular incident. I also know that there some have asked about what has all been going on there. Yes, there have been in the last couple of years, there's been a definite uptick in violent crime and other types of calls occurring at that apartment complex, and that is why people have been noticing an increased police presence and why it is having a drawn more of our focus in that area. Mr. Brown, did that cover all the primary topics that you brought up earlier?
Yes, sir, it did. I want to be
I
clear
got a
that,
question, Barrett, when you get a moment.
yes,
you.
absolutely. I want to clarify something. So the uptick in police presence in that area is because of calls from that area.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's what it is. Right now, we don't have like I said, we're still trying to fill the positions on our community-oriented policing team. And although we are attempting to conduct more targeted operations around the city when there's a particular issue that needs to be addressed, the increase in police presence in the fire departments is due to calls. We understand that it is not fall on deaf ears, and we are not blind to the fact that yes, all those subjects involved in the incident that have been making the news lately involving Officer Strader were not happy about the Grand Police Department being at the apartments. But generally speaking, 90% of the time when we're down there, it's because we were dispatched there because somebody called. We also have been speaking to other residents in the area who say that there's a problem there, that they are concerned, that they don't want this types of activity to continue. So I think there's right now some communication issues, and there's a definite schism in the community where you get some people who would prefer not to have us there, and others who are calling us and wanting us to come down there and help to solve problems. And so that's what our challenge is at this point in time, is trying to establish those relationships that are going to help us to solve problems.
And I want to ask, were there any people in who spoke at any of these rallies, or I know there was some people came to city council meeting. It looks like to me that the people who were had concerns about the police being in the area and the actions that were taken were not from Graham.
There are some. I know there was about, I don't have an exact number of the demonstrators at the city council meeting, and I think it was somewhere between 30 and 50. I was there that night, and I was actually handling the front door, helping people get in and out. I think there was about 6 people who actually spoke, who signed up to speak to the city council. Some of them are Graham residents, some are not. Some live just outside, some are not from this county. As far as I know, none of them are from that particular neighborhood. But yes, we do have a lot of times when we have demonstrators, a good portion of them are not actually residents of Graham or of Alamance County.
Thank you. Robert, you had a question?
Yeah, let me unmute. Thank you, Officer Velez, for coming out and talking with us. I thought I would only have one question, but now I've got a couple. Okay. Question 1, when you're vetting officers for your department, are there community members on that vetting process?
No, sir, they are not. Well, not in the tradition of as their own panels, because the personnel records are protected by North Carolina general statute. We, of course, during the background process, we speak to several people. That's why I can go into detail. I just didn't know how far we needed to go into that today. But they turn in the application. It's a city application. There's also a police department application. There's a special state form they have to fill out, which is a very long questionnaire that we review. And then they're scheduled to come in for preliminary interviews. And then the packet is assigned to a background investigator. The investigator, who are specifically trained for background investigations, they have to go and they follow up with all their listed references. Those are professional and personal. And so in that way, if they're from our local community, that would involve them. But wherever their community is, where they live and work, is the members of the community and the public that will be contacted. And we use those references to contact other references they didn't put down. The point is to speak to, of course, we all know how job applications work. If your references, normally people you know are going to say nice things about you. So we like to follow through and follow up and find people that may or may not. We're going to make it extensive. We also follow up with their parents, their spouses, their neighbors. We do the check their employees for the past decade. And that's why we say it's quite extensive. Normally it takes several months for us to conduct a background investigation on an officer. And then it has to be approved by the state. And then
Okay.
yes,
And so with we can't use Graham can't use these federal funds for the community policing because we just can't fill the slots?
oh, we have been awarded the grants, sir. Yeah, we are just trying to hire them. And also like I said, the hiring process takes quite a while. We were awarded these slots in October, and not to get here and bore you with the details of government bureaucracy, but then, of course, had to go back before the council and let them know we got the grant. Then it's approved to start hiring for the process. That took until we were through the December meeting of the city council. And then we actively started recruiting and hiring, because at the time we were, for once, for a change, we were actually fully staffed when the grant was approved. So then we had to start recruiting, advertising, and hiring for those positions. We are in the process of hiring, and it takes a long time. We have actually given conditional officer employment to, I think, 3 subjects in the last several weeks. But once those happen, they had to make it, have not already they're not experienced or from another law enforcement agency. They have to go through a BLET, that's several months. And then they have to go through, like I said, the application process takes several months. Then we have to get them outfitted and then get them with their field training officers, which takes another 4 months before they're out on the road on their own. So it takes a while to fill positions.
Okay, here's my final question. Now, I know that many police departments around the country are turning what I would consider maybe a blind eye to things like seat belt and having seat belts, and even the entire everything that surrounds some of these traffic stops. Is there any discussion in the Graham Police Department about taking seatbelt infractions off the protocol for a traffic stop? And that's my last question. Thank you.
No, sir, there is not. We encourage officers to do traffic enforcement when they are free, and especially the patrol division. And at this time, there's not talk of us limiting or removing any of the general statutes off of their list of things they can enforce.
Are there any other questions?
I have my hand up, President Brown.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to monitor. I can't remember who had it up first, Anthony or Patty. Patsy, Patsy, would you like to go ahead first?
Thank you. I don't know if it's really a question, but to the officer, what appears to me and Graham that really concerns me, and maybe you can take it back to Chief Cole, is I think your greatest problem right now is the fact that you have a PR problem. The question would be, when I finish my statement, is whether you have someone in that position that handles PRs. I preface that statement by saying, for example, the situation with the Ivy Road situation at the Pines apartment. As a, previous, I have to say, because I'm now resident of Mebane, but as a previous longstanding 30 plus years in the city of Graham, the problem that I have with, instead of just coming out and saying this is what happened, it seemed like the majority of the publicity all of a sudden went to how bad the Pines apartments. Well, anybody living in Graham know that just didn't happen. That's been a problem in Graham. I mean, I remember when they were built, at least for the last 5 or 6 years. So it came off to me as if you were discounting what we actually saw there. And I say that for several other incidents that has happened within the last few years. I think, and I've talked to Chief Cole also about the hiring of the gentleman. I can't believe, I can understand the legal process of hiring officers, but when you have one that clearly the records indicated that left employment, I can't believe that somewhere in that process that there is not vetting from a community perspective of the perception that people will have of that individual. And all of that sums up to me, and you got a serious public relations issue. So going to the question, do you have a PR person? And is that the right person?
Okay, so recently we recognized the same issue. At the end of last year, Chief Cole did contract out a public relations subject to handle some of it, to help us in that regard. That is something that we do not have staffing for. And so we contract with a company, privately owned business that helps us with our PR. He just started back in October. I went through some media relations training. I was reassigned from my previous position to the public information officer position. So I work closely with this party, and we've been trying to, and he's been assisting us with our social media presence and with our media, our traditional media contacts. And so trying to assist us in those regards. So those have increased. In regards to your comment about the Pines, and we put out multiple statements to our media and on our website, explaining the situation at the Pines as best we could in large regard to exactly the way I've explained it thus far. And yes, we realize that sometimes it's not getting the reach that we would like it to. But yes, and as far as in detail and just coming out and stating things, multiple times I've stated as best I could about what occurred at the Pines, barring the actual use of force incidents, which are still in the investigation. I can't comment on those yet. Did that answer your question, Ms. Simpson?
It does, but once again, I just hope that this PR person can just do a better job in when we do have serious incidents to just basically say to the extent that it's serious. But I've just felt like too much of the communications went to the problem of the Pines versus what actually happened that day. And I do realize you can't give all the details while you investigate it. But then it just, to me, I looked and said, well, come on, Graham Police. I mean, you've known of the Pine situation. You had a killing there, shooting there. You've had many things. So why are you talking about the Pines right now? Let's talk about what happened that day. So I think they need to just, I don't know. I just feel like the officers that I know with Graham do an excellent job. I know Chief Cole is really, really trying, but I really think that the way you're handling your press and communications with those of us that live in Graham is not the appropriate way to do that. So that's my comments, but thank you, officer, very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Simpson. I will make note of that. And, I'll be speaking to the chief, I'm sure this afternoon or later on this evening, and I'll bring these criticisms up and we'll see what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patsy. And I gotta say, I agree with Patsy in that the PR, like I when Strader was hired, there was some question about his past work experience. And I certainly think people make mistakes. I think if he didn't lose his certification and he's still eligible for hire, that he should not lose his livelihood. But it just seemed that given the controversy we have in Graham around that statue, about the laws in Graham, the ordinances about issuing permits, the number of protests that we've had in Graham, and I think one of the Graham ordinances was determined unconstitutional. I think they still may be rewriting that. The rest, and it just seemed like it didn't play well to hire someone with that history. But that again is like I said, a PR issue. So Anthony, you had a question, a comment?
I did. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for speaking and kind of commenting on things. My question is related. It's kind of to piggyback a little bit off President Brown's just now. One of the observations, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Graham Police Department is not nationally accredited. And I know there's a growing interest in ensuring that police municipalities are nationally accredited, which is a different standard than what's locally. And I know one of the emphasis that they look for is police hiring practices. First point, I guess, is as Graham PD discussed the possibility of pursuing national accreditation for the police department. And then two, along those same lines, I'm not sure if Officer Strader was part of the Giglio list, and I know that may not be public knowledge because I know that it's shared with police municipalities, but during the hiring practice, but I'm not sure if that's a public document. But it does give discretion to the hiring officials to understand the risk that they're undertaking if they do hire someone who is on that list. And so I guess it kind of goes back to my original question. Have there been any discussions or talks about possibly having Graham PD look towards national accreditation, which will help support them in their hiring practices and possibly prevent putting any risk to the police department as it relates to their hiring practices?
Yes, sir. Yes, so I'm not, you would be unfortunately mistaken. We have been internationally and nationally accredited since 1997, and no, Officer Strader is not on a Giglio list.
Awesome.
Yeah, we pay very close attention to that. Anything that we perceive, we know, we follow, we try to follow the best practices. As like I said, we've been accredited since the late 90s, and so yeah, we would, if somebody was a Giglio, generally speaking, for most agencies that I deal with, especially all the accredited law enforcement agencies in North Carolina, once you make a Giglio list, anything like that, that pretty much makes you in the grand scheme of things, non-certifiable. So you're going to find it rare that somebody is hired that has made the Giglio list.
Right, and I appreciate that point, because that's probably an important thing for the public to know, that that list is designed for people who have a history of being in controversial situations, and it's been identified, and it's a reportable piece that the municipality would have to report to the state. And so I think that may clear up a few things if people understood kind of what that law is and just how it works, and then maybe that could aid in some of the PR challenges that Graham is having, so that people understand kind of why was it, if the alleged things that took place in Greensboro occurred, how is an officer still able to obtain gainful employment in another agency if that was the case? And I think having the public understand Giglio law would probably help support that. So maybe that's something that could be explored with the Graham PD.
Yes, to sum it up, just for those here, the Giglio law is a Supreme Court case on, just to sum it up, it provides standards on which an officer is determined to be dishonest or not credible, no longer able to testify in court, and the DA's office is actually responsible for maintaining that list. Chiefs of police and sheriffs may recommend, but your district attorney is the one responsible for adding or putting somebody on that list, and then the agency and the local DA's office is responsible for reporting it to the training standards or the sheriff standards commissions. And as far as the incidents that involved Officer Strader in Greensboro, the reason that there's legal things going on in Greensboro that prevent us from speaking about that stuff, I can't go into detail, but I mean, there's a lot of things that, even as police officers, we wish we could explain to make things clear and make it, because there are several times I hear people repeating repeating what they have heard about facts of a particular situation, and we know that they are not necessarily the most accurate. But until certain things have been done in that jurisdiction, we're not allowed to speak about it. Anybody?
Dr. Yarborough?
Yes, I know there has some talk and some meetings around community advisory for the police department. Does the Graham Police Department have a community advisory committee, or does it just meet with the sheriff's advisory board?
What we are, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. So yes, the Chief Cole is attempting to form a Chiefs Advisory Committee for the Graham Police Department, and members of that, there's nothing preventing them, I think, from being on the Sheriff's Advisory Board. So currently we have, like I said, it's still in its infancy, the Chiefs Advisory Committee, and she is attempting to form that. And she has 1 or 2 members of that committee already. And I think, I cannot comment on that specifically. She would have to, I'd have to check with her, but I think they may in some way be involved in the sheriff's board, but I'm not sure.
Patsy, did you have another question or was your hand still raised from before? Patsy?
I'm sorry, is it for me?
Yeah, did you have another question or was your hand still raised from before?
I'm sorry, my hand was still raised. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
no problem. Are there any other questions? Concerns? Robert, Mayor Lou, is your hand still raised from before or do you have a new question?
I have a new question. This is Mary Louise. Thank you, Officer Velez, for coming and talking to us. I have watched more than enough disturbing videos of Confederate flag waving or wearing individuals showing up at the courthouse. And it's not just me, it's everybody in the nation is watching them. And I'm just wondering, what are can you explain to me what their rights are, why they continually show up? Because a couple of them broke into fist fights and they crossed over and tried to attack an African-American young man, and a white woman intervened. I'm not sure what her role is, but that went viral and it was really disturbing, mostly because, you know, there's so much at stake if an African-American young man is arrested. And it was really disturbing that they crossed over, but the police did come and arrest him. I'm not sure what this guy's name was, but I'm just wondering, when you describe a situation like that, do you describe it as two different groups that are protesting, or do you say, well, there was a white supremacy group and there was an anti-white supremacy group? Or do you say, I mean, I'm just wondering, do you just describe it as two groups that have a different opinion? Because it's getting, you know, it's worrying me, because all of our eyes, of course, are on Buffalo now. And I'm, you know, a lot of people are worried that something will escalate. And I'm just wondering, what is the terminology for the group that shows up with their Confederate flags and often using, you know, language that is, for me, really offensive? Could you just talk about that, please, so I can understand? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And as far as in law enforcement, like I try to explain to most people, we are the middle. We're not on either side, we're on the side of the law. And so, yes, regardless of whether or not, you know, especially with, believe me, I understand, is with all the stuff that's going on in Graham, we have experienced it firsthand with the statue and Confederate flags and other such from any groups being displayed down there. And you know, and we enforce the law. Our opinions on a particular matter, whether or not we like the statue, whether or not we like a flag, that's inconsequential as far as the police officer is concerned. So as far as terminology, categorization, nomenclature, we stick away from anything inflammatory. We report on what it is that we have confirmed or has been reported to us. So when we, you know, when those subjects were charged, you know, I think in the officer's report, yes, it would have said if he was making any racial slurs or inflammatory languages used, but I think if I'm remembering the situation you're talking about, that was a while back. I think he was arrested for an assault. But generally speaking, we refer to groups as, you know, demonstrators, unless there's some other, they have been categorized by another agency or validated to be involved in some type of subversive group or some type of extremist group or a hate group. We're not the ones that named them, is I guess the best way I can put that. You know, so these local organizations that come downtown, unless they are part of some larger organization, we're not responsible for naming them. We report on the facts that occur, and the larger parent organizations that are responsible for the registration or nomenclature of any subversive groups or criminal organizations, then they are responsible for adding those to the list. Now, and like I said, yes, regardless of whether or not I agree with these subjects that are downtown with Confederate flags, they have rights just like any other group that wants to come down there and demonstrate, whether or not I agree with it. So I hope that helps to answer your question.
Yes, thank you. But I just want to say it really scared me to watch it. I was worried that the group was clearly baiting the other group. And like I said, anybody who's a mother, it was a young person that this guy was swinging at. And then the police came and intervened, but those were, in my mind, racist individuals, and I am worried about it escalating. And but now I'm enlightened about your interpretation of this. I do hope that we can do more about this before it escalates. That's all my personal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Louise. Are there any other questions? I think I would be remiss if I did not mention that we have Captain Velez, that we have on the call Dr. Charlie Flint, who has chaired our Criminal Justice Committee. I think that you two could have be great resources to each other as we try to balance out what community policing looks like. Dr. Flint, do you have anything you'd like to add or any question?
I don't know whether Captain Velez remember me, but we have been a long time ago working, and I don't know what happened. And I would like for them to utilize my service. I'd like to work with them. I like to, talk about some stuff. Like one question I would ask, since you did call on me, was you said you had this grant to hire community police officers. This guy that you did hire, would he be a candidate for a community police officer?
Are you referring to Officer Strader, Doctor?
Yes.
He applies. What we're going to do as far as the way our community-oriented police officer positions are going is once once we have the officers hired, and I think that was the question that came up. So I thank you for asking that question, because this has come up in other groups I've spoken to. Is we're not hiring. I know when we say it in the government speak, they say we're going to hire for these positions. What's actually happening is we're hiring officers for the Grand Police Department, and then we're going to take applications from within for officers who want to be involved in, and then we're going to go through a selection process to assign the community-oriented police officers. We're not hiring brand new officers and sticking those positions. It's going to be experienced officers holding these roles. But if Officer Strader chose, like any other employee, to apply for that position, I would say so. But we also are not blind to the fact that, yes, currently with him and his name, there is some controversy. But we, like I said, we're going to keep operating based on our standards and maintain that objectivity. And then we're going to move forward from there. But yes.
So you do have a criteria for community policing. If
yes,
one
yes, ma'am.
want to become a community police, and training and those kinds of things, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, you know me, you know how to reach me. And I think thank you, President, for putting that out there.
Yeah,
I will remember people, including the sheriff, who knows that I'm here, but.
Yeah, I will put my email in the messaging at the bottom, and that way, if anybody needs to get a hold of me, because yes, we've been in a couple town hall meetings in the past couple of years together. So I do remember you, Dr. Flint. I thank you for that question.
Okay.
President Brown, this is Patsy. Can I ask another question?
Yes, ma'am. Just one moment. I got Ernest right in front of you, Ernest Lewis in front of you. But I also would like to make a shameless plug for the NAACP membership and the joining of the Criminal Justice Committee, if you'd like to do that. Ernest, and then Patsy.
Hello. My name is Ernest Lewis. I'm the chair of the Legal Redress Committee for Alamance County NAACP. I find it interesting that we're going to have community policing, but you said that the community is not involved in the conversation about who gets hired. I think that's a little bit backwards. If anything, is there any thought about sharing those standards with the community that you're saying these are what we're holding our officers to?
What standards are you speaking of, sir?
Like if we have these 6 positions, we're gonna hold these people to this level of training, this level of community focus, whatever the specifics involved with those 6 positions, should that not be shared with the Graham community?
Yes, sir. We will share what their role is and what those qualifications, general qualifications are. But we've had this conversation with several people before as well. To answer your question, like I said, the Chiefs Advisory Committee is still in its infancy, and like I was explaining to Dr. Flint, is we're not hiring specifically for these positions. We're hiring police officers, and then the police officers that are pre-existing will apply for these COP positions.
Duly noted, but the additional, my concern as a Graham resident is the PR problem and the lack of trust, and the reason why people responded so virulently against Officer Strader is that we've seen the story from Greensboro, but there's no communication about the whole process and procedure about how he gets to be part of our community policing, right? So that's a huge PR problem that could be easily rectified, from my view, by just saying what the deal is. Be honest with everyone, rather than having have to go to city council and raise hell.
Oh, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, Mr.
Clipped a little bit of his hair around his oops.
Okay. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Mr. Lewis, and I understand that, and that's what I was explaining earlier, is that with Officer Strader, there's some stuff that is still ongoing. I think it's some type of legality or some type of litigation going on in Greensboro that's preventing us from talking about the facts of what occurred there. And since it's not our agency, and like I said, I don't know all of them, but most of what the assumptions and perceptions are coming from are just repeated inaccurate information. And so I understand the concern.
The reason why things are being repeated inaccurately is because there has not been a statement from the police. And I'm not saying you have to get into the specifics about what happened in Greensboro. I've studied the case. I know the specifics as well as it can be known for a private individual. That's not what my issue is. The issue is people saw what the issue, what was being reported, and now he's in our community, and there's no statement from Graham Police, but he's a qualified officer.
Right, and I understand that. And like I said, I wish I could go into further details. Not a matter of not wanting to be transparent. Is one thing I've been working on as the public information officer, is trying to be more transparent. There are legal limitations to some things I can speak about. And unfortunately, I'm not in control of those.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I wish there's several times I wish I could just say what I know, and I cannot at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernest. Patsy, you had a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. The other day there was is it fallen officer ceremony in Graham? Is that what it was called, or was it for the veterans?
It was a fallen officer ceremony, Miss Simpson. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, who organized that?
That is organized by the municipal police chiefs every year. It's annual, and this year it was hosted by the Graham Police Department.
Okay, so I'm going back to the PR. What I said was one of your major issues.
Mm-hmm.
What thought did the city of Graham officials have when the guest speaker was a member of the GOP, very controversial, Mr. Robinson, I think was his name. You see what I'm saying? And it's right there in Graham. I mean, I know everybody has their own personal opinion, but I knew from the past of what comes out of his mouth that I was going to honor them here at home. Now I did watch it a little bit on YouTube, not YouTube, excuse me, on Zoom. But see, I'm trying to pinpoint something is missing there. If the chief had anything to do with that, and knowing anything about politics, and I know NAACP, we're nonpartisan, but it's back to that image that we were talking about. Now, do you understand what I'm saying?
I can understand what you're saying,
What is
ma'am.
wrong with that thought process? That, and you could also say that about the officer. Somewhere, something is missing.
And to answer your question is just like you said about the NAACP being nonpartisan, a police department is as well. So we understand that almost in any way we go, we're going to be triggering controversy with somebody. And so the issue is that when we're looking at the specific event itself, and when I'm sure when the chief and the honor guard were planning that event, they were looking on somebody who could speak, because that event is centered around the support of the families of those fallen officers and for those that support law enforcement. So I'm sure that they had a lot to do with why he was selected as a guest speaker along with the other speakers that were there. But that is to answer that question. But yes, we don't get me wrong, we understand, but we also are non-politics.
And I understand that, but I'm back to little decisions like that have a major impact on how and what people perceive Graham to be. Okay. Mr. Robinson has spent a lot of time with Tally. He's been here numerous times representing certain organizations. And I know there's somebody out here, as a matter of fact, we got a school board member and her father is one of those individuals. Could have been a nonpartisan speaker. I mean, it's just got to be a little bit more work to improve your image. And that is just the most recent example I wanted to give you of where there is a problem. Somebody needs to vet these things a little bit better to understand the perception of what's going on right now in society. Thank you so much, officer.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Patsy. I also should mention that I was seated right behind Samuel Merritt at this memorial service, who is the descendant of Wyatt Outlaw. He said this was the first time that he had been to the memorial. To the credit of the Graham Police Department, they went out of their way to try to make sure he could get there, even offering to send a vehicle to bring him from Durham and take him back so he could participate. And I asked him why this was the first time he had been here. And he said, well, you know, Wyatt hadn't been on the wall that long. So I just wanted to acknowledge that they seem to have given some thought to some things, but Patsy has a good point about giving thought to the smaller details. And isn't Robinson like the lieutenant governor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it could have been Patsy that they were looking for the highest ranking official they could find. The state troopers, the Department of Motor Vehicle, everybody seemed to have been sending the highest ranking person they had in law enforcement. But I don't know. But I wasn't planning this. I'm just speculating.
Yeah, Mark Robinson.
Right.
And
Are there any other
President,
questions?
I'm just gonna make a comment about something you said, and I agree with Patsy about Piara, and I appreciate the Graham Police inviting Wyatt Outlaw's family member. However, it wasn't because of them. It was because of the African American cultural arts and history that anybody even knew of Wyatt Outlaw's ancestors.
Quite right.
So I'm not giving the credit to the Graham Police Department. I am saying thank you for inviting them. But had it not been for the African American Cultural Arts and History Center, who was always in contact with him when they were talking about Wyatt Outlaw, Graham Police wouldn't have not. So they should give them part of the credit as well.
Dr. Yarbrough, I can always rely on you to keep me on the straight and narrow. I suggested that they discovered him. I did not mean to do that. To be honest, I think if it had not been for the African American Cultural Arts Center, nobody would have known who Wyatt Outlaw was. They kind of put him forward. And to be fair, they called me to find out if I could get in contact with Mr. Merritt. And the first person I called was Shanice. It turns out that what's his name? The historian in Alamance County. Help me, somebody. Walter Boyd.
Walter Boyd.
I think the African American Cultural and Arts Center had an event, and he found Mr. Merritt, and he has been maintaining contact with him, and that's the contact that we use to get in contact with them. And Shanice even,
Jane Sellers actually found it.
oh, okay, Jane Sellers family, thank you. But he got in contact with us this time. But yeah, Jane has put that her Wyatt Outlaw exhibit kind of resurrected this story so that we would have it on deck. So are there any other questions? But thank you, Dr. Yarbrough. I can see how that was worded badly. Anybody else? Well, we are rounding up an hour and a half. Thank you so much, Angela Thompson, Tony Velez, for coming and sharing information with us that, I think is the reason why we meet, is so that we can have these kind of conversations. We can share information, that we can be the most informed advocates in our community possible. Are there any announcements that from committee chairs? Anybody want to talk about upcoming meeting or activity?
I'd just like to quickly, this is Omega Wilson. I'd just like to quickly add two things. There's an interconnection between what is going on relative to environmental justice, because our organization, the Western Revitalization Association, has been asked to be a part of building a formal environmental justice structure with the city of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. And a part of that includes, of course, the current mayor, Vi Lyles, and the former mayor, Jennifer Roberts. Our communication with Jennifer Roberts led back to Alamance County. Jennifer Roberts is a part of the Carter Center. She represents the Carter Center, that's Jimmy Carter Center out of Atlanta, specifically related to voter rights, voter protection, voter security. And Alamance County has popped up as one of the most popped up because of all the visibility related to possible violence connected to voter and voter rights security and African Americans, people of color. And I have connected her to Alamance County via Dr. Yarborough and Mr. Pierce and Mary Brown. I think some continuing conversation need to be made with her because they're looking at some ongoing services or support relative to the Carter Center, which you probably already know is national relative to voter rights and voter security. And they're connecting this directly with environmental justice and the work we've been doing for 30 years. I'll just leave it at that because of time, but I think there needs to be some further discussions related to that, because former Mayor Jennifer Roberts is representing the Carter Center as a statewide activity, just for the whole state of North Carolina. And I think the NAACP needs to be formally connected and updated on both of those pieces. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Let's follow up with that. I'm extremely interested in that, and environmental justice is so important because health and environment are fundamental to all the other forms of justice. I got my hands full, as you can hear. Any committee chairs who would like to report in?
Education Committee met Wednesday, a very good meeting. We have a lot of follow-up to do. We will be attending the next Board of Education meeting, and we will also, some of us will also be attending the meeting with the superintendent and the diversity director on Tuesday.
Thank you, Dr. Yarbrough. Anthony?
Anthony put his in the chat. He had to leave, but he put his announced in the chat.
Got you. Thank you, Dr. Yarbrough. Ernest, you got anything?
We're working, I've been a little bit out of pocket working on Crystal Cavaliers' campaign, but Legal Redress will be working to be restarted by the summer. Looking for members who want to be involved and engaged and helping our community with their legal needs. Stay tuned.
Thank you. Is Ernestine on? Communications, Brittany, you on? This you. Sorry. Go ahead.
Hey, so we have a membership meeting coming up this month. It'll probably be on Friday. I will make sure that gets emailed out to all the membership. And if you were not a member receiving those emails, you can email the secretary and she will make sure to get that to me. And yep, so we'll be working on a membership drive and whatnot, and we will also be out at the Juneteenth celebration in grade level. So that's all for me.
Dr. Flint, you got anything you want to say or come? I know you're having joint committee meetings with education right now, but you got anything?
Is that I've been incapacitated, and I thank Dr. Yarborough for keeping me up to date. And hopefully, if things continue to progress, I'll be at the next meeting. So look out for the Zoom for the Education Committee, because the Criminal Justice Committee, those one or two of us who still working, been meeting with the Education Committee. So I would say, look for that notice and be there.
All right, thank you, Dr. Flint.
Let me share with Dr. Flint for the Criminal Justice Committee. There is an increased interest now in having a public defender's office in Alamance. I know you have been working on that. So
Right.
I do have a name for you because they said there have been one. People are dissatisfied with court-appointed attorneys, and the overseer of the court-appointed attorneys interested, Jeff Connolly, you can take his name, in having a public defender's office in Alamance County. So I don't have Jeff Connolly's number. I'm sure we can find, but that you may want to make contact with that individual.
Okay.
For criminal justice.
Thank you.
And Dr. Flint, thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Dr. Flint, we're glad that you're on the mend. Let's see, Linda, I see Linda Snipes. She's housing. Oh, that's Linda. Okay. We have, I should say, is Angela Thompson still on? We are taking members. We could use a chair of a health chair person. I think we've had one before, especially during COVID. Jessica Hunt probably could use some help on that committee too. And veterans, Sean.
Nothing new to report. Memorial Day celebrations will be across the county next weekend, sir.
All right, thank you.
Mr.
Any
Chair, I'd like to ask, since you mentioned to her, is there, have we had any, and we might be to get this from Jessica, any concerns about getting baby formula in Alamance County?
Yes, I can assure you that there's a concern, but I haven't heard anything from the committee about it. It has been, my information is only anecdotal. I don't know that there's any, I mean, that would be something to talk to Jessica about. I don't know if what Alamance County is doing, or if somebody's keeping a track of people who are needy but unable to find it. I just don't know. We've been scouring the globe, so. But I think that's something for the committee. Yes, absolutely. Are there any partnering organizations who'd like to make announcements?
Sure, I'll jump on this one, sir. I guess my councilman hat first. We have passed Juneteenth as an additional paid holiday over in Mebane. So those who wrote in, stepped in, walked in, thank you all for the support. It made a big difference. And now we have an additional paid holiday in Mebane for Juneteenth. So that's good news right there. That's phenomenal news. And with the Democratic Party, put on my other hat, we will be meeting the first Thursday. I want to say it's going to be June 2nd. It will be in person again. It will be at an outdoor location, and look forward to seeing you all there. Location to be determined. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anybody else?
The Board of Elections, we will be canvassing Thursday and Friday. Our numbers out of 111,000 registered voters, we had about 18,000 people to vote, which is 12% of the voters in Alamance County. So that's a little bit higher than the last election. But I want to say to those who are working to get people out to vote, regardless if they just vote. But the upcoming election, to me, with 111,000 voters, and we're prepared to handle 111,000 voters. But we had about 18,000 who voted during the primary. And this did not come from me this time. So I am so glad somebody else is listening. And this is nonpartisan. Look at the numbers. And it did not come from me. I'm always saying, look at the numbers in a party meeting. And they did call two people's names. I'm not going to call their names this time because they're both on. And but I heard someone else say it. I was elated because that is important to the NAACP, who is looking at policy and not party. We need to know the numbers as well.
That's the truth.
Sean and Bob.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Facts versus opinions. So thank you, Dr. Yarbrough. I should mention too, before we leave, Mr. Captain Velez, I think there's some members who, the committees in NAACP go through different cycles depending on the membership of that time. But I think Dana Courtney was on. I remember when we had a criminal justice committee that when Chief Smythe was in Burlington, before they made changes to community policies or they changed policies in the handbook, they would send drafts to the NAACP's Criminal Justice Committee so that we could ask questions, not that we could write it for them, but to kind of check it to see if there were things that hadn't occurred to the police force that might occur to community advocacy. It wasn't anything we took to the newspaper. It wasn't anything that we got on Facebook and posted about, but we had the committee look at it, made some notations, maybe a word change here and there. Maybe instead of using the word alien, which is the legal term, maybe you use immigrant, that kind of thing. Maybe that is something that the Graham Police might consider. Go ahead, Bob. I think you're on mute, Bob.
This device that I have, this iPad, if I put my hand up, it actually picks that up on the camera and puts my hand up. And that doesn't mean to put my hand up. Sorry.
Your computer is as high tech as your car. All right. We have the feeding program, the second, fourth, and fifth Sunday, and the National Council of Negro Women, I think, is going to take the first Sunday. So we're excited about that. We feed about 80 people in a community kitchen. We don't ask any questions. A lot of people who just say this for the benefit of people who are joining today. It is one of my favorite things that the NAACP does. We did it all the way through COVID. We made the necessary safety provisions and we feed about 80 people every other week. And we do such a good job at it that the homeless shelter stopped feeding folks on Sunday. They say go down to the NAACP and get a plate. So are there any other announcements, concerns for the community before we before we adjourn? All right, hearing none, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. I think I got a motion. Is there a second? All right, we consider yourselves adjourned. Happy holiday weekend, folks.
Great meeting. Thanks all.
Bye.
Take care, Papa Barrett.
Take care of Avery.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Good to be back. Good to be back.
Thanks, sir. Good to see you, Dr. Plant.